It's time for State of the Nation. This is Morning Express. The date today is the 25th day of February 2016. Now, one of the things that has rocked this country for quite a number of months now is the NYS scandal. And we've had twists and turns in that particular scandal. That's what we're going to be talking about here today. Later on, we're going to give you an opportunity to just let us know, as Kenyans, how do you feel this conversation should go? What is it that we learn from it? And we're going to be opening up the phone lines. So the phone line is going to be displayed. But before we do that, let's first of all just take a walk down memory lane on how this scandal started. And we're going to be discussing where we are at and what is it that we learn. Let's first of all look at some of the archive footage of where this story started.
My government will not tolerate corrupt public officers. We will hold our anti-corruption bodies accountable. Corruption is the greatest threat.
The president said clearly that we must fight corruption because it is the vice that is killing our economy every second. So I want to insist that the Honorable Duale and Honorable Murkomen must step aside from the positions they have taken in Senate, because those are the positions of government in Parliament.
Umesikia siasa mingi, iko NYS, Waiguru, nini na nini. Hiyo yote ni maneno ya propaganda. She needs a psychiatrist and she needs prayers. Waiguru, you can run, you can hide, you can look for human shield like Honorable Duale and the rest, but we are telling you, your place is in committee maximum prison.
I think Anne has been misadvised that if you want to get away from answering the questions, just get into a political traction that points as though one side of the coalition were planning something as against her.
Well, those are some of the intrigues that we have had, and if we can call it political drama, as it were, of this particular scandal. But let me first of all introduce the panel that we have this morning. And to my extreme left, we have Martin Olo, who is a political analyst. Thank you for coming this early. It's great to have you, as always. Then we also have Paul Wafula, who is an editor and writer with the Standard newspaper. Thank you for joining us. Now, let me start with you, Paul. And you're one who, of course, has read through this story. You're a writer, so through what has been written, there's what we can glean. Let's first of all start with the history of this particular saga. Where did we start?
I think when you look at it, there was a time in May 2015. And I think the story really began with Harake, Adan Harake. This was a senior deputy at the NYS. And this gentleman one morning walked into his office. He alleges that he arrived, and I mean, there was everything for him to be happy. Where you have, he had, at that point, the Treasury had just released 3.5 billion to the NYS in the supplementary budget. And when he arrived in the office, he realized that about 21 transactions had been approved, that he had paid actually out. So money came in on 19th, and then on 20th, between 20th and 21st, about 826 million had been committed. He checked the system and he was shocked because, according to him, he had not actually authorized those transactions. So he started the process of complaining and finding out what really has happened, because from where he sits, he thinks that that his password had been hacked into. Now, if that is true or not, or is another story for another day, but the information we have so far is that from that point is when now he started asking the questions. And so he escalated the matter. He went to the IFMIS director. That's the system that they use to process. And he reported the issue and was turned away. He went to his peers, and his peers said he was making noise. He escalated the matter to the devolution, then devolution cabinet secretary Waiguru. And that is where now everything started. And we remember at that time now the politicians came on board, and there was all this noise from the opposition. And then from there the story has been morphing out in bits and pieces. So everyone has been coming up with the issue. But I think Kabura is the one who has actually been able to
brought it back to the
surface and gave us a point to really get into. Yeah. And now everybody is running around to tell us what their side of their story was. I mean, the things that Waiguru is saying right now, why did she not say them before?
But somebody might also ask even Kavura, why didn't she say them before? Because this is not something that started yesterday, but at some point, now that she's in under investigation on certain things, then she comes out and makes these allegations. But let me go to Martin Olo. And Martin, your feeling on this particular saga, especially given that it seems to be taking a new face and adding a new face almost every single day.
You see, the thing we should do is to take a step back and ask the question, what is turning this whole thing into a saga or into an issue? And then there are three things that I'd like to point out. One, there is a way in which transactions have been conducted or have been entered into that could raise an issue. Companies have been registered, and these companies have done business, and perhaps companies that are recently registered and having had so easy access to big time businesses. So that's the first question. Was money stolen? When you look at it from that perspective, there isn't stealing, so to speak, but there is collusion or there is procurement processes being compromised to allow businesses to actually easily access, business companies to easily access businesses.
And then specific companies, not just any company.
To easily access money and to then make profit, if you look at it that way. Now, of course, easily, when it's easily accessing business, the question is, are people benefiting from this ease? Is there a collusion that is also allowing people to benefit by virtue of sitting in offices? Now that's the second question you need to ask. Now the third question we need to ask is, when the whole thing broke out, the initial issue was, no, there was no theft. And that seems to be consistent, there was no theft. Because what is happening here is that there was businesses, there were contracts, there were LPOs that had been issued and had been committed in the system, and therefore it looks like if they had supplied, they needed to be given that money, or if they were going to supply, already money had been set aside for them in order for it to be fast-tracked as soon as they pay. So now if you see that there was no money lost, but there was commitment and there was business, then you ask, what happened? Why did it turn out to be a saga? And this is the story. That there were various suppliers and they had asked for more money than the 791, and there was some kind of mix-up between who then was supposed to be paid and who was supposed to wait. So it appears those who were supposed to wait were entered into the same system first, and those who were supposed to wait, or rather those who were supposed to wait had been entered in the same system first, denying those that had been queued to be paid the opportunity to be paid. So it appeared that there was a problem. If there was enough money in terms of budgetary exchequer, we would never have known exactly what would have happened, because each of these people had, quote unquote, genuine claim to that money. So the problem then came, there was queuing, and some people had jumped that queue. That's how this thing came up. That's why what he's talking about Harake then begin to raise, because somewhere in the background, arrangements had been made as to who gets what money first, but somewhere in the posting and commitments, it appears that others had been given this who had not been queued. So whichever way you look at it, there's backroom operations. There is some kind of control, remote control that's happening to procurement somewhere, and therefore it clashes at the point of payment, because the people who were supposed to be paid complained that they hadn't been paid, and the ones who were supposed to wait appear to have jumped that queue. And who made them jump that queue? There must have been some clash or some giveaway within that system that actually brought us where we are.
All right, Paul.
I think just to add on that, money was lost. Yeah, I think he's not being fair to say that money,
I don't see
that money was not lost. You see, the first initial revelation that came up was that 826 million had actually been committed, and that was
and committed irregularly. I mean, it can be committed, but
using passwords. Now, at that point, that's where Waiguru came out and said there is no money that has been lost, because from where she sat at that point, the argument was all along that we have stopped the money from being stolen. I mean, we had seen the commitments, and we were able to stop it. But then when the investigations were conducted, when they realized that actually another 790 million had been paid already through the same system. So this was a second like you've already picked 790 million, the system has gone through. Now let me come back for 820. So when they came for 820, it's at this point when Harake probably raised the issue. But already 790 million had been stolen, and that was money that went and nobody, and that's why the asset recovery is trying to all this is coming out, because the asset recovery is actually going after the assets of these people, because there's money that was lost. So they are freezing bank accounts, they are freezing, you cannot sell your cars and so on and so forth, and that's why all this is coming out, because people are now finding it tough to survive without that money. But money was actually lost.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Martin Olo, in terms of Kenyans as a whole, as a political analyst, when you look at some of the statements that are being made by all those mentioned, let's start with Anne Waiguru. She came out clearly and said no money has been lost whatsoever. Denied it fully. Then later on, there seemed to be, now came up with the IFMIS being compromised, which first of all was supposed to be a foolproof system that makes sure that money, in fact, I think when you look at the analysis, there are almost 53 checks before any money is released. There are quite a number of checks that have to go through to make sure that no money is lost. Okay, fine, let's go agree to go with the idea that maybe a password was stolen by whoever. Then we have now today where she's coming out and bringing out very powerful names. Question is, what is it that we're supposed to learn from this, given that this is the same mouth speaking? One time says there's no money lost. Second time here we have that we have Eden Duale was there, there's Murkomen, there's big names now being pulled into the saga by the same mouth.
You see, this is why again sometimes we need to look at the facts and look at the politics. I am not yet convinced, or have not seen the actual money that's supposed to have been lost and who received it. If there was money lost and somebody received it, the first thing we should have seen is a criminal charge of theft, not even corruption. Because who stole this money and who actually benefited from it? So we should have seen a theft charge and then asset recovery. Why are we going for asset recovery without necessarily preferring criminal charges? Something is not adding up. There's no evidence that's being placed on the table to tell us. Because when I go for Paul's assets, it means that Paul has fraudulently or has benefited from proceeds of crime or proceeds of corruption.
And as a result, should Paul have been charged first with stealing or corruption before the asset recovery?
And then, when you go for Kafura's accounts, Kafura is not a public servant. She's not a public servant. So how do you go for her with an offense of corruption? But you are saying that she benefited from proceeds of stolen or from stolen money. Then who stole this money and who gave it to her? So there's still a lot of gaps here. Now that said, let's now look at the politics of it. When this whole thing came up, my initial impression was here was a scandal in the making, that actually there appears to be money that may have been lost. But we were quickly told that no, there was an attempt, and this attempt seemed to have been discovered, and so there's no money that was lost. Next, we see people being charged, and they're not being charged. In fact, we see asset recovery processes going against them. Now they're not being charged. We have seen the DCI has given a report, the Director of Criminal Investigation has given a report. That report is not being acted upon. We've seen recommendations from the DPP saying charge so-and-so, don't charge so-and-so. What we are seeing is more than meets the eye. There appears to be unwillingness to tell Kenyans exactly what the issues are. I would like to be convinced that money has been stolen, but I would like to be told it is Michael Gitonga who was given. Because if money is stolen, you will see traces of it.
Paul, from a scribe's perspective, why is it becoming so mystical and difficult to put those facts that Martin Olo is bringing up? Given, if, for example, if Miss was compromised, then there should be clear evidence. This is the person who compromised. This is the machine that was used. If it's asset recovery, like Martin Olo is saying, if you're coming to recover assets from person A, then really there should be that person A must have received that money, assets, whatever, from somebody.
Let me just take you back a bit. You know, in this country, we have a tendency of looking at things from one way and then we forget the other side of it. Why I say that is because you remember at some point the central bank actually raised an alarm to say that, look, there are these transactions that are going on that